Welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and each week I talk with event professionals and entrepreneurs about how they plan, promote, and run their events. We help you build your events empire by growing your business using live events, whether you're running community meetups or conferences, trade shows, and other events. We focus on finding actionable tips that you can use straight away. We want you to get more attendees, produce epic events, make more money, and most importantly, to do it all with no stress. This podcast is sponsored by Eventsframe. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. Make the switch from Eventbrite today to our amazing ticketing and registration system with no ticket fees. Most ticketing systems charge you a minimum of 3% of the ticket price, but we just have a flat, low fee with no ticket fees and no restrictions. There's literally no system out there that is cheaper than Eventsframe. It's also super easy to use, and you can embed your tickets in your website, or you can use our own website builder, which is really simple. We have amazing options to apply all kinds of discounts and all the features you'd expect from a much more expensive system like QR code check-in. Go to eventsframe.com, that's eventsframe.com, for a free, no-risk, 1-month trial. Hi, Dan here, just jumping in again. If you listened to last week's episode, you'll know I'm taking a couple of weeks down in the Austrian Alps with the family, doing a bit of hiking and mountaineering, which I'm super excited about. So I'm re-releasing a couple of really great episodes from the end of 2018. As I mentioned before, like our listenership grew a lot from kind of February onwards in 2019. So there's some great stuff which I want to get out there, which a lot of people haven't heard. And this was an interview with a guy called Chris Reynolds, who's also in the Dynamite Circle. It's an entrepreneurs group. I mean, I seem to be mentioning it every episode pretty much, but it's a really great community of entrepreneurs all around the world, which I love. And Chris runs residential retreats. Now, this is something a lot of people are interested in getting into, where you get a bunch of people together. Maybe it's for a weekend, maybe it's for a week, even for a month. Like there's long-term ones. You get them together, you rent a house, you rent an apartment, and you run a bunch of kind of immersive events. You know, you have meetups in the morning, afternoon, you'll run some social events. And Chris has really perfected this kind of business, and it's one of his main income streams. He runs a few. He's run them in Barcelona, in Thailand. I know he's looking at more locations. So it's a really interesting topic. I get asked about it a lot, and I hope you enjoy the interview with Chris, and look forward to being back recording a new episode next week. Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. Recording this in Prague on the 4th of October. It's a beautiful sunny day. And today I was delighted to talk with Chris Reynolds. Chris has a website, thebusinessmethod.com, and it was a super interesting chat. Chris has been running meetups, but not just your typical 1 day or 1 hour meetup. He's been running retreats for 1 week, 2 weeks, even 2 months in Barcelona, in Chiang Mai, in Brazil. He's a super interesting guy. He's a pretty much a full-time traveler. He coined the term slowmad, where he spends a few months in different places. And I think for anyone who's looking at running any kind of retreat or residential program, this will have a lot of super interesting information, both in how he promotes the event via forums and via social media, and also how he runs the event, which mostly he does himself. And also podcasting. He's a machine on the podcasting. He recorded 100 interviews in 100 days, which he'll talk about. So all round, a very interesting guy. This podcast is brought to you by Eventsframe. That's the software company I'm a co-founder of. It's ticketing and attendee management. Think Eventbrite, but with no ticket fees. So you can create beautiful websites, or you can embed the tickets in your own website. It's really easy to use. And we've got a special offer for podcast listeners. Just drop me an email at dan@eventsframe.com. So DAN at eventsframe.com. Put the subject line podcast, and I'll send you a special offer so you can try Eventsframe and get started running some awesome events. So that's all for now. Let's jump into the interview with Chris. Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. Today I'm delighted to be talking with Chris Reynolds from The Business Method. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm fantastic, Dan, and I'm excited to be here. Let's make a great show.
Cool. Chris, we only jumped on the call a minute ago. Where are you actually located? You didn't tell me.
At the moment, I am in Chiang Mai, Thailand, getting ready for our event that's coming up in a few weeks that you guys have actually helped us with.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get onto that later. Now, you're kind of, it seems to me, a true digital nomad. Are you completely nomadic, or do you have a home base?
Earth is my home base.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like a digital nomad, to be honest with you.
Nobody self-identifies as a digital nomad, do they? I mean,
Yeah.
I've dipped in and out of that life a lot, and it's kind of, it used to be a cool thing. Now it's not so cool as a term.
Yeah, I feel like I spend usually the summers, extended summers, so like 5, 6 months, 7 months in Europe. So that's kind of my base for the summer, and then Asia for a couple months for the fall, and then winter I go home for a month or two to the States, and then Brazil my girlfriend and I do like 3 months in Brazil in the spring. So those are our bases. So we're not like in a country for 2 weeks and in another country for 2 weeks and traveling real rapidly.
It's funny. Is there, because I was kind of like that, in my previous life when I was an IT contractor, I'd regularly, I'd take a contract for say 3 to 6 months. This was before pre-4-hour work week, and I'd take a contract and then I'd have 3 months off. So I'd go to Thailand or I'd go to South America, to Ecuador or something, and hang out. And I always liked the kind of idea of spending 2, 3, 4 months somewhere and then move on. It's sort of, I don't know, is there a term for that kind of movement?
Slowmad.
Slowmad. I like it.
Digital slowmad.
I like it.
Yeah.
Cool. So Chris, you run the Business Method podcast, which I listen to. It's very cool. And you run some events, which we'll get into. But I actually don't know much about your background. So I'm curious, just a quick overview of how you got into this life and what you used to do, because I have no idea.
Yeah. For my entrepreneurial career, Dan, I started out working with a real estate investing network marketing company in 2006. And we would sell real estate investing education and then also be a part of a network marketing group, then go invest in real estate together. So that was my very first business venture.
So it was your company, or you worked for somebody else?
Yeah, I was an independent contractor for the company. So they had like 25,000 members around the world. And it was great. The education was phenomenal, both business, entrepreneurial, and sales education and the real estate investing education. The company was doing great and the business was doing great. And then the global recession / housing crisis hit.
Yeah,
and
2008,
wiped
I
out.
guess.
Yeah, wiped out my business, and it also wiped out that company after a couple of years. So I went broke. I had a couple of years of good times and bought a new sports car, and then went to flat out like broke, like, oh,
did
crap.
Did all the things that you do when you're young and stupid, like I've done that kind of thing. You make some money and it's like, I need to buy a car. That's the most important thing in my life right now, is to have a car. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. People still think like that, I guess we're a bit older and wiser and we've been through that, but it's like the worst thing you could do. You should just invest that money, and I know that now.
Yeah, but it's the lessons, sometimes you need to go through those lessons to really understand, okay, that wasn't a wise decision to make, and then
exactly.
and actually I was talking on our podcast just last night about a guy who went broke and then made millions in 5 years after that. And, it's like, how can we teach entrepreneurs to avoid that? But also at the same time, it was one of the biggest mistakes and best mistakes we ever made. You become such a better human on the flip side of that, when most people do. So
just a quick curious, just to stay on your real estate thing. So did you get into real estate investing yourself, and do you still do that, or did you just work on advising other people, or is that something you kind of like to do yourself as well?
So my part in the company was to sell the education part of it.
Right.
And I was like literally probably a few months away from start investing into real estate before the recession hit.
Right,
and when
so
it did,
probably got a lucky break, I guess.
Kind of, yeah. We still ended up losing money in some of our investments because of it. I kind of avoided that, but real estate is still a passion of mine, but I've not got, because I've been location independent, I have not, started investing again. So right. After that, I started investing in gold and silver.
Got it.
But actually within the next year or two, we're talking about, buying a place and having that as our base for a couple of years, and then selling it, and then buying a place in another country and having that for our place for a couple of years, and then selling that and that sort of thing. So buy, stay, and flip.
Just to step in here quickly to mention our sponsor, Eventsframe, a project I'm co-founder of, and I want to mention our integrations, which we believe are the best available. Firstly, payment integrations. You can connect any payment gateway such as Stripe, PayPal, Braintree, or even bank account or take cash. You can connect everything to Eventsframe. We also have the best marketing integrations out there with every email marketing system, including MailChimp, Zapier, Infusionsoft, Aweber, Drip. And we've got deep integrations with all the social media platforms like Facebook, Google, and Twitter. We've got thousands of events live on Eventsframe right now, ranging from small community meetups to huge trade shows and conferences. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. That's eventsframe.com. And now, back to the interview. Yeah, it's interesting. I've got a couple of places. I mean, I've been based in Prague for a long time, so I've got somewhere here.
Yeah.
And actually, just together with a friend, I spend a lot of time in Austria in the winter. I'm really into skiing, snowboarding. You know, I used to teach in a resort there, and I've wanted to buy a place there for forever. And me and a friend actually did it this year. We bought a place together, which kind of, you know, more and more people are doing this. You know, buying a bunch of places, you know, with a group of people.
Yes.
And it's cool, you know. And we're renting it out in between, you know, Booking.com, Airbnb, and that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking about that model maybe again for more places. You know, I spend a lot of time in Asia, and I have a team in Cebu in the Philippines. It'd be great to get a place there. Maybe do something similar, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that sounds like a genius idea for
sure.
Well,
time will tell, I guess.
Yes,
yeah.
And actually, we were thinking about going skiing in Austria this winter. So maybe
you can stay in our place. You can stay for free.
Yeah.
Let me know. Just let me know when you want to go.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Cool.
So where were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were talking. Yeah. So the business. So what was the next step? Where did you get on? What did you get into next?
So I went flat out broke, and actually I returned to the Midwest. So I was living in Phoenix in the southwest of the United States. I returned to the Midwest where I grew up, helped my friend reestablish his life after his wife passed, and he helped me reestablish my life after I went broke. And so he was a farmer, and so I just kind of worked on his farm for 9 months or so, and to get back on my feet.
Wow.
And then it started reading our most famous book in the community that you and I hang around with, The 4-Hour Workweek. And I just think
everyone we know pretty much.
Yeah. And I engulfed my life into it, Dan. I think I read it 4 or 5 times, and I listened to the audio at least a dozen times, and I made it a study guide. And when I read it, I was like, I know this is for me. So in 2009, yeah, right around 2009, I started building niche websites online, and I wanted to create that income so I could be abroad, live abroad, and still have some money coming in. So I started to produce some money from that, and then I decided to buy a one-way ticket to Costa Rica and spend a year there, and landed in Costa Rica, got a place to rent, continued to build business. Then I got into
how long did you spend in Costa Rica out of interest?
We stayed 13 months there.
Cool. I haven't been. I was in Panama recently, which is right next door, and I loved Panama. You know, that's the place. I imagine it's a lot less touristy than Costa Rica, but I really enjoyed it. You know, and I'd like to try Costa Rica as well.
Which part of Panama were you in?
We were on the Pacific side. I'm really into surfing, so we stayed in a few. Playa Vanau was the beach. It's kind of middle of nowhere, but we stayed in Panama City for a few days in Cusco Viejo, I think it's called, the old town, which was cool. And then I never went to the Caribbean side, but I'd like to try that as well.
There's an island town, Caribbean side, called Bocas del Toro, and
heard
it's
of that,
fast. Yeah, it's like 5 islands, and you just hop and take a boat to each island and go surfing and hang out, and it's beautiful.
Nice. So
Beautiful
Costa Rica,
place.
you were on the beach hanging out, or in the city? Where were you?
Yeah, we were 5 minutes from the beach. Yeah, we got a house, and there's monkeys climbing in our roof every morning when we woke up, and it was a real Costa Rican life. Like it was great. But the internet went out all the time. This is 2011 too, and so we'd have a rainstorm, and then internet's gone for an hour, so we'd have to break and then get back to work a little later. So then I started this project because I knew when I wanted to travel, I wanted to do some really cool projects. So I created these charity adventure trips, and we would like climb the tallest mountain in Costa Rica, and we raised a bunch of money for malnourished kids in Costa Rica, and children with developmental disabilities. And then after I left to Costa Rica, I moved to Peru.
Sorry, I need to slow down. This is interesting because for me, you know, I'm really I like to geek out on events, and that's what we talk about. And I guess that's the first that was the first live event you ran, I guess, these charity events.
First outside of the US, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And how did you promote them, and how did you go about running these experiences?
So it was all warm market and then email list. So I had
Right.
a personal email list. So I would blast my email, put it on social media, and then, just contact friends and family.
Sure.
And so the idea was we were going to have like this fun jungle trip, go lining and do a mountain bike trip and then climb the tallest mountain in Costa Rica. And while doing that, promote it online to raise as much money as we could for this clinic, that's run by nuns in the capital of Costa Rica called San Jose, that need some money to feed the kids. They took care of a bunch of kids with developmental disabilities.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we just promoted it through those networks, and we had so much fun at the end of the first event. I asked everybody, should I do this again? Everybody's like, yeah, do it again. And I said, well, I'm going to Peru for next year. And they're like, yes, we're in, let's do it, whatever. And I moved to Peru and Cusco.
No, because I was actually just in Peru for the first time this year, just in Lima, actually. I had an event there, so I went out for a few days. And it's a really cool place, actually. I was surprised how much I enjoyed it there.
Yeah, I've never made it to Lima. I heard really great things about it, but I've never spent any time. So I was up in the mountains in Cusco. And for people that don't know, that's the dropping off point really for Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
So there's this valley in between Machu Picchu and Cusco, which I think it's about 100 miles or so. That's called the Sacred Valley, which would be 120 or 160 kilometers. And in this valley, I found this village and this family that did these charity projects, like creating greenhouses and sustainable miniature farms for other villagers in the area for children who were malnourished at their school. They would hike, an hour a day to go to school, and then they'd only have like potatoes and rice to eat, and they'd be tired and sluggish, and then they'd hike an hour to go back to home after school. And a lot of times this was a 12-hour period for these kids. So they get up at 5 a.m., hike to school, try to be there around 7 or so, spend most of the day, and then have a long hike home. And sometimes this is through the elements, so like raining, cold weather. And in Peru too, in these villages in the Andes, if the family's out working on the farm and the kid's going to school, like say the child is 12, 13, 14 years old, even 10, they have to take their infant siblings with them too. So you have these 12-year-old girls with these infant siblings on their backs that are, that they're walking through the mountains in the rain and stuff. So they're very malnourished, but they have, a free open life up there. But anyway, so they were doing these projects to feed these kids. Said, okay, well, we can raise some money up and let's find a good village and a good school, and we can build a greenhouse and a sustainable farm to where the kids can use the little farm for their classroom, and then also grow some healthy vegetables and fruits so they can feed themselves. So then I did the same promotional and marketing strategies that we had for the first event. Went through warm markets and social media, and I think we ended up raising like $12,000 for the school, and that was back in 2012. And it started out as just 1,000-meter greenhouse slash square meter slash greenhouse slash farm, and now it's turned into like I think 10,000 square meters where the families help the kids grow the food and everything, and the families get a little bit for themselves as well. So it turned into a really successful project. And then I did a third one where I hiked across Spain and raised money, and we did a charity adventure trip to Ghana to finish the construction of a home for slave children.
So they're all really cool things. I'm curious, like, how were you funding yourself at this time? Did you have some savings, or how were you sort of surviving to do all these ventures?
Well, I was still doing a niche websites online.
Right. So you have the niche websites going as well. Great. Got it.
Yeah. And I did a bit of contracting work too during that time. And that kept the funding for myself for those trips as well. And at first I never, thought about making those into a business. And then I think if I look back now, I think I could have made it into a pretty cool business. But, I moved on since then, and it was fun events projects to start.
It's interesting that you just did one of each. You didn't repeat them because, a lot of people would just go back and do the same thing because it's kind of simple. You obviously wanted a bit of a venture yourself and try some new things as well. Keep it interesting for
That
you.
was it. That was it. Yeah, that was it for sure.
So what was next then? You did the 3 or 4 charity events, and you're in Spain, I guess, at this point. What was your next step?
So what one thing I really realized over those 3 years that I was doing those events and traveling is that I really miss my tribe. Like I had a really great tribe in the States, but when I left the States and started traveling, that I wasn't surrounded by entrepreneurs, and I longed for that, for people that were in the personal development industry. So I landed in Barcelona, and I love the city, and I put it up on the post for an entrepreneur forum that you and I are both a part of. And I said, hey, let's do some co-living in Barcelona. Let's spend 3 months there, and we'll build business together and go and enjoy the city at the same time.
No, the one thing I think we've sort of skipped to this point is like, so when you said you put it up, like how had you got a list at this point? Had you already started podcasting? Were you blogging? I'm curious how you had this list of people, these contacts.
The list was either just from either travels or people I'd met.
It was literally people you'd met in person.
Yeah. So I wasn't ever collecting any data from, we had a website for our charity events that we did.
Yeah.
It was all just warm marketing or network marketing, really. Being a part of the entrepreneurial forum, then I put a post up on the forum, and it didn't go viral, but it got a lot of and it got a lot of feedback. Bunch of people.
Sorry to interrupt. The forum you're talking about is the Dynamite Circle, I guess, which we're both a member of, which everybody should check out. It's Dan and Ian, who run the Tropical MBA podcast.
No, that's great. Yeah, and highly recommend the DC Dynamite Circle for anybody that's out there too. So I put the post, let's live in Barcelona for 3 months. And
I remember it very well.
Yeah, and so it got really good feedback, and we ended up getting 12 people to come to Barcelona for 3 months. And that was the fruition, the start of what has become really kind of the events that I do today. During those 3 months, we figured out how to do masterminds, how to be incredibly productive, how to collaborate together, how to set goals together. And at the end of it, I presented it to all the people that attended that event, that I was thinking about making this into a business, and everybody overwhelmingly said yeah. So I then created the Entrepreneur House.
So I'm just curious, the 3 months, because that's a crazy long time to run an event. Like, did you have like a schedule? Like you're like, I'm going to do this on this day, and was it activities every day or every week or every other day? Like, did you have a plan, or were you kind of winging it as
I winged it. I completely winged everything. And it worked out really well. Everybody was really supportive, and they were great. But after, that first one, I really learned how to run logistics and how to manage people for a long extended period of time.
Yeah.
And so then right after that, 10 days after the finish of that one, then I launched another 2-month event, and then a 1-month event, and then another 1-month event after that.
What we discussed on your podcast is you're gradually getting shorter and shorter with these events. You're getting more focused and less time.
Yeah. And one of two things. One, it's just, as I grow older, I don't want to spend as much time doing long extended events. And also too, I realized, Dan, like when in the right productivity structure, people could get just as good results as they were getting in a month. So now we do an event that's 10 days long, and I see people just knocking the cover off the ball with getting results similar or even better sometimes than what people were getting in a month-long experience.
Definitely. So let's talk about Entrepreneur House. So marketing-wise, you posted in the forum we're a member of. Obviously now you do a lot of podcasts. Have you kind of used the podcast to get people to come to your events? Has that been kind of a marketing channel as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a huge marketing channel, because both from guests of the podcast and from listeners of the podcast. It's one of the main ones we use now.
And I'm curious, as someone who's new to podcasting, like when you post, you put the podcast up on your site, do you put an email opt-in on every podcast episode to try to get registrations?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think I'm seeing more and more people are using podcasts to try to promote their events. And I guess the thing about it is, it's you've got to take it as a long-term venture, because it's not going to, no one's going to listen for the first few months, So the only way to do it, I guess, is if you're in this business for a while, and you're going to build a long-term profile on it. I would presume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, your promotion was the podcast. Is there anything else you were doing in terms of promoting on social media? Were you doing it, putting out content or anything else?
Yeah, I would create posts on Reddit and different entrepreneurial platforms, and of course post on Facebook and different social media platforms to get people to attend the Entrepreneur House events.
Which would you say were the most effective? You said Facebook, Reddit. I mean, like, what would you say, like 80-20 wise, what got you the most people in terms of the sort of online presence?
I would say, still the majority of the people were from more warm networks or groups that I was a part of.
Yeah.
Some of them, but I would say at that point, Dan, like all platforms were pretty even. I wouldn't say there
Right.
was a lot coming in from one platform.
Got it.
So, and that being said, I wasn't doing Facebook ads. I did it a couple years later, but at that time I was just putting, post on in different Facebook groups or posting on my wall or that sort of thing.
Got it.
So that's what that was looking
Yeah,
like.
yeah. How did the Facebook ads work out, by the way? Did that get any attendees?
It did not,
No.
but we didn't go heavy. We didn't go heavy on it.
Sure, sure.
It didn't. Yeah.
Cool. And now I'm curious, like the event, like what was we talked a bit about the promotion in terms of logistics. How did you structure that? Obviously the first one you were winging it. The second one, what was your plan in terms of how you organized it? And did you run it yourself or did you have people helping you?
Both. So, well, in the first couple I was running myself, and then I started having either volunteers or other people come in to help me. The structure really was formed from what I learned in the first 3 months of that event in Barcelona. So, we had a mastermind once a week, same time. We would meet at one of the apartments that we were living at, and then basically on the weekends get a group of amazing people, things start to organically happen. So the social part of it, I would schedule some dinners and some meetups, but the social part of it, those folks, those guys just kind of took care of it on their own, and they say, hey, let's go climb a mountain this weekend, and everybody's like, yeah, and so they go and do that.
Cool. Did you find if you go on these kind of trips, sometimes there'll be one kind of difficult person. Did you ever have anyone like that? Like, you obviously don't name any names, but did you have someone that just didn't get on with anyone and you had to try to police
For
that
sure.
somehow?
Yeah, every event had one at least.
Yeah. And what's your strategy? Because I guess some people listening to this might be wanting to run kind of, I guess, longer term events for their community, retreat kind of things. What do you do with someone like that? Because you can't just kick them off.
Yeah, I would try to include them as much as possible. Then eventually, and if there's anybody or any person saying something negative about the situation or the person, I would always try to communicate, on a better level, the positive things about that person or
Sure.
what I learned about that person to try and include them. For the most part, though, this is why I love location independent entrepreneurs, very high caliber type of people who are generally very positive and open. So when there's an individual like that, they seek to understand more than they do to judge. And so that's why I continue to do events in this space, because the type of people that it attracts, and I really enjoy that.
Sure.
And so it never turned into a toxic situation. Actually, maybe once with a couple roommates,
Right.
but then after the end of the event, they just kind of went on their own way, and they kept separate throughout the process.
Did you take the personal side, say, look, you're not doing the dishes or whatever they're not doing, did you sort of try to tell them, look, you could change something and people would like you? Did you do some sort of personal coaching for this?
If you get a haircut, even people may like you better. No, but yeah, I'd make suggestions. Like one guy, so we had this one guy who would never buy toilet paper. And it annoyed everybody. Everybody bought toilet paper, but there's always one person that just forgets to do the rest of the stuff, or dishes or something. So I would always make a suggestion. If not, eventually somebody else would say, you haven't done the dishes. We always do the dishes and that sort of thing.
That's cool.
And eventually it kind of evolved into some house rules, so people would say, okay, if you eat, you have to do your dishes immediately, or at least put them in the dishwasher, right?
Sure.
And that sort of thing. So that structure gave them some boundaries eventually, and then things didn't get toxic or out of control.
And I guess the more events you run, you can just tell people in advance, here's the things to remember, you have to do this, you have to do this.
Yeah.
Did you have any situation you sort of turned it around? You got someone who maybe wasn't getting on with people, and by the end of it, they were friends?
Nothing really stands out.
Like you say, I mean, this kind of community,
Yeah.
it's minor problems. People generally, if they're
Yes.
going to come into something like this, almost everyone's going to want to get on with people. They're going to want to hang
Yeah.
out and want to learn from other people. It'd
Yeah.
be sort of strange to, if you didn't enjoy being social, to come to something like this, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was like kind of the borderline of I thought about creating a business that was kind of a travel business where you take people on these cool trips, but at the same time, you don't know who exactly you're going to get in to sign up for the trip, and there could be type of difficult situation that happens between the attendees. And again, I can't say enough for either people that are involved in the DC or entrepreneurs in general, even location independent entrepreneurs, like generally very high caliber type of people
Definitely.
who want to minimize any type of drama.
Yeah, and people that want to learn, people are open,
Yeah.
always want to learn from other people, like it's not just trying to impose your view on someone else. You speak to someone, you want to learn something from them.
Mm-hmm. Very much, very much.
Now, have you, in terms of how this is going, so the next event is, I'm going to lose the family-friendly rating now, but it's called Getting Shit Done. Now, my first question is that a good name? Like my opinion is like, it's memorable. No one's going to forget it. But I obviously I don't care about swear words and things, but you might lose some, like people. Or have you not found that?
Well, this is actually the first event that we're doing under this name.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like in this network or the type of people that would come to the event would worry too much about that.
That's the thing. It's your network,
Right.
isn't it? Like, I mean, I work with a lot of teachers and things where you wouldn't use a word like that, But I guess
Right.
in your community, in our community, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And what I found too is like I've heard people of doing events or coaching called Get It Done. And I mean, it's kind of just halfway. It's not really. And every time I would do an event, especially productivity events, like people would say this over and over and over and over again. They would say, I just want to get bleep done. I just want to get it done, And it was the expression of what they were saying and really what they were feeling. And there was only one way to name it, when it came down to it. And I'm completely happy with the name, and I don't see myself changing it anytime soon. And if somebody's worried about that little word, then, there's other great events that they could go attend somewhere.
Sure. And it's cool because there's the DC conference in Bangkok, which we're both going to be at, which would be good. And then did you deliberately put it right after that so people could come after the DC event to your event?
Yeah, I've always been worked closely with those guys at the DC to do our events directly after DCBKK because
Cool.
I think half of the attendees or so come up to Chiang Mai post the conference in Bangkok. And so a lot of people were looking for places to go have fun or get a lot of work done. And so we just provided that platform for them.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward next year. Hopefully I'll be doing the same thing.
Bring the
Yeah, we will. I mean, it's interesting having a young family now because I think, more and more people are doing this kind of thing with families. For me, it's I don't want to do this the whole year, but part of the year it's cool to hang out and do things like this,
Yeah, for sure.
Now, is this so? I'm really curious. Is this your main business now? Are you doing other things? Obviously, the podcasting is huge. I mean, you're a machine in terms of how many podcasts you do. You do like you did 100 interviews, is that right? With 100 entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I did the first one was 100 interviews with 100 day. The first series was 100 interviews in 100 days with $100,000 entrepreneurs and higher. We're just wrapping up 100 interviews with 7-figure location independent entrepreneurs, which Dan came on. I'd recommend listening to his episode. And then we're going into 100 interviews with major influencers. So we're going to get behind the minds and the science of what it means and how to become a major influencer, and how to monetize that and use your influence for good.
Now, I'm really curious, like, obviously, we're both in business, so it's cool to talk about business, but are you monetizing the podcast in any way? Or, I mean, obviously you enjoy it. It goes without saying you wouldn't do that much podcasting if you didn't enjoy it, but are you, apart from getting people to come to your events, is there any other way you're monetizing the podcast?
Podcast is a funnel for us to bring people to sign up for our newsletter or to get more aware about. I do productivity coaching as well. So some people will sign up for productivity coaching that heard us on the podcast or come to our events. And then in 2019, we're going to release 6-figure and 7-figure masterminds.
Cool.
That will be run 9 months long, and then also start doing online get shit done productivity workshops.
Great. And how's your coaching now? Is it one-on-one coaching? Like if somebody's interested in this and wants to get in touch, like is it group coaching, forum, one-on-one? Like what's your format?
It's one-on-one, minimum 3 months, and we put you in kind of the system that I've been using for the past 10 years to be more productive and to set goals and to focus on 1 or 2 big business goals to really take that person's business to the next level.
Great. I think that's pretty much everything from my side. Is there anything you'd like to promote in terms of what you're doing? Obviously, the businessmethod.com, I guess, is where people can find you.
Yeah, check out Business Method Podcast and then the businessmethod.com. Our events here in 19 days, get shit done live in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Feel free to beep out any of those words if you want to, Dan.
It's too much hassle. I'll just lose my family friend, whatever it's called, the rating on iTunes.
I don't think they check too often.
I don't think they check too much. Yeah, and that event is October 23rd to November the 1st. And I honestly, if I've got a really quick trip to Thailand, but I would be going on this event if I could. It looks really cool.
And you have a newborn baby too.
That's the reason I can't come. But next year I think I'll bring him if he doesn't annoy the rest of the attendees. I guess he won't be in the room most of the time.
No, yeah, we have private rooms and everything. So,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? Eventsframe event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result? You sell more tickets. Check out eventsframe.com.